O grey Seer Thanquol, disgraced, exiled, hounded at every turn by his many jealous rivals. How many times has he stood on the precipice of victory, a mere whisker from eternal greatness, preyed on, sabotaged, and undermined by his begrudging nemesis. But not this time, he swore. His scheme was elaborate and immense. The claw pack he'd raised was mighty, boasting peerless fighters, beasts, and contraptions. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and the terminal days of this dying world inspired a renaissance for the thinker-tinkers and flesh sculptors of the great clans. The Stormfiends proved what the greatest minds of Skaven kind could achieve when they stopped undermining each other. Hulking rat ogres brought to heel and controlled through revolutionary, if unscrupulous means. Flesh and bone fused with the very finest, most destructive, most unstable weaponry Clan Skryre had ever developed. Yes, these were good. Thaquol was satisfied. The clans had done well, creating all the weapons and meat things he needed. Of course, Thaquol had received a marginal, tiny little sliver of help in this endeavor. The veil had been parted, and the Verminlords had stepped through. Skreech Verminking was the greatest of these. The horned rat's will manifest. All answered to him, all bent before his will. Though Thaquol insists they were equals in this venture, colleagues, he asserts. The clans were cooperating. The Verminlords had come. These were the end of days, heralded in absolutely by a phenomenon even more ominous. Elves and dwarves were working together. They had nothing left to lose. Together with the men of the Empire, they stood for all they deemed good and just. No one knew what the Great Seer was plotting, but given the vast piece of hellish weaponry pointed directly at the heavens, they'd surmised it wasn't anything that ended well for them. Gazing longingly at the looming presence of the Chaos Moon, Thaquol chittered in preemptive triumph, and the forces of order advanced. Warp cannons crackled to life and spat violent warp energy across the sky, aiming to knock the elves' soaring dragon down to earth. Stormfiends raised their monstrous rattling cannons and fired at the behest of their twisted pilots. Gouts of warp fire licked towards the ancient beast, yet it slammed into the storm vermin undeterred. Thaquol did not like this at all. He shrieked at the Stormfiends, "Kill it! Faster, better, now!" It's all under control, Thaquol thought over and over, just in case the Verminlord was listening to his thoughts. The elves advanced in the dragon's wake. An ethereal miasma flickered in their midst, and time and space inverted. Through a crack in reality, Skreech Verminking emerged and pressed them towards Thaquol and his elite guard. Virulent gas and unchained magic ripped across the crush of bodies. The churning swell of violence tore apart the proud warriors of Ulthuan. Skreech was doing well. Too well, thought Thaquol. He tore into the fray to assert dominance over the elves. Well, he ordered Boneripper to tear into the fray. But issuing such an order is still a very brave thing to do. Thaquol, chewing on a lump of warpstone to keep his focus ablaze, threw bursts of fell energy to ravage the dragon, defiling its flesh from the inside. It could take no more, and fled the onslaughts. Taking to the skies for safety, Thaquol followed. Warp lightning ripped it from the air. While the artillery crews cheered, Thaquol screeched at them to shut up, then declared himself the almighty slayer of dragons. He, and he alone. Skreech Verminking was all-powerful, but had he killed any dragons lately? 1-0 to Thaquol. On the eastern flank, the dwarfs witnessed the dreadful might of the Stormfiends. Limbs fused with baleful black iron shattered Grombril armor with ease, and the lumbering brutes slaughtered the stout warriors with insulting indifference. The humans fared no better. The Empire grew weak. The best of them died months ago on distant fronts. These were the dregs, but they still fought with that hallmark human defiance that the Grey Seer had grown to despise. The triumvirate of man, Dwarf and elf continued their onslaughts. Fresh bodies piled into the fray. Thaquol's irritation was limitless. Frantically, he checked every reinforcing battalion, dreading to catch a glimpse of them. The dwarf and his companion, who'd foiled him at every twist and turn and made it their life's ambition to torment him, had not shown up. Maybe they were far away or dead. The thought made a wave of pleasure flow through Thaquol. The thought and the warpstone he kept eating. The pressure built within him. He could taste victory on his gums and feel it in his bones. He looked on with grim fascination as his new playthings decimated the final few dwarfs, their stocky frames bursting to showers of gore. But the ecstatic embrace of victory, snaking its fingers through Thaquol's fur, vanished. The lizardmen lent their aid to the conspiring forces of order. Carnosaurs, Saurus, Croxigor, primeval beasts of earth and sky. The grey seer could feel his musk glands itch beneath his skin. He was so close, so close. They would not stop him, not now. Thaquol was sick and tired of this entire world plotting against him. Not today, not again. The Slann held them together. He had to die. A Saurus old blood atop an immense Carnosaur tore into the vast bulk of a hell-pit abomination. The titanic creatures ravaged one another, tearing bloody trenches through flesh with tooth and claw. A second abomination wrought grim destruction on the Empire's ranks, and the humans weren't handling it anywhere near as well as the Saurus. The flank broke, and the Skaven turned their full attention to the lizardmen, piling into their core. Skreech Verminking spoke words of power, ominous and grating. He pulled forth a tide of storm vermin even Thaquol was unknowing of, and the lizard men assault erupted into carnage. The Verminlord paced along the confines of the skirmish, cutting down droves of resilient Saurus with abrupt flicks of his dread weapons. Thaquol watched on, impressed, a little jealous. The Carnosaur savaged its way through the Rat Ogre Guard, and the Grey Seer pulled sharply on Boneripper's ear. He wasn't running away. Oh no, the mighty Thaquol wouldn't dream of it. The lingering stench on the air awfully like fear musk? No, that was the stink of unbridled courage. Thaquol advanced in a backwardly direction. He'd let Skreech deal with the meager Carnosaur. There were more important things that demanded his attention. He turned a corner to see the Slann readying a timeless incantation, and he unleashed one of his own, wreathed in warp fire, lightning, and a few choice insults. The raw, baleful power scorched the life from the ancient being's eyes, and he fell to earth with a resonant impact. The winds of magic stirred around the Slann, swelled, and then were lost to the tempestuous night. Panicked cries rippled across the assault force, and sensing their cause was lost, they routed. They'd brought the best their struggling races could muster, but it wasn't enough. The Skaven they had known were gone, extinct. These were not the craven rabble, bickering and scheming for their own self-interest. The Skaven were finally united, to the doom of all beings of this world. Pistons creaked, energy crackled, and the great warp cannon groaned like an ancient titan from slumber. The cosmos stood silent and still for a heartbeat, and then there was nothing but noise and desolation. Thaquol had done it. He had ruptured the Chaos Moon. The great wound bled a torrent of warpstone, and it fell to earth furiously. As he shattered the heavens themselves, a new order would be born from the corpse of the old, dying world, and Thaquol would rule over it all. We'll see how that turns out another time.